Hello and welcome to Corpse Club, the official podcast of dailydead.com. I am one of your co-hosts, Bryan Christopher, and tonight we've got Scott Drebit and Derek Anderson joining in, and we
Hey,
are back in the saddle, back in the groove with the three horsemen shit. I already
three
screwed it up
horsemen of the
because it's supposed to be
apocalypse.
the freaking four horsemen. But we are the three horsemen. We are back. Um, and yeah, like we talked about during our last episode when we did Alien Romulus that we were looking to get back into at least a monthly routine. And so yeah, we're back to talk about a little grab bag of goodies. We're going to be talking about Beetlejuice. We'll be talking Blink Twice, Late Night with the Devil, In a Violent Nature, and Longlegs. So I think we got a nice little variety sprinkled in there. What do you think?
It's a lovely potpourri of horrific gems, I think. There's two in here. I haven't seen the Beetlejuice and the Blinky Blinky. But other than that, and I look forward to those being spoiled because I don't care really. I mean, Beetlejuice, I pretty much know what I'm going to be getting into there. Blink Twice, I don't, but yet I kind of do. So I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that. Who,
All right.
which
And
one
yes,
of us is
so that is a good point. We are going to lay down a blanket spoiler alert. In all of these movies, we will be incorporating some very spoilerific plot points as we're talking about them. And as we always have to do when we give the spoiler warning, we have to remind Derek that is not carte blanche for you to just spew everything out in the first sentence.
I'm taking a deep breath already just so I can like get it all out and without even
Like
inhaling.
his face was blue already from holding in the breath, so I know what's coming. So again, settle down.
I'll try. I think talking Alien Romulus, I was able to kind of pace myself a little bit the last episode, so that was good practice for
You did
this.
a good job, buddy. Let's see if we can keep that up. Let's
well, but
keep the
that's because
streak
there was
alive.
more of us then. He's got all the leashes let out when there's just the three horsemen,
Yep.
Yeah.
and we'll be watching. That's
We'll
all
see
I'm
if we'll see if once again we let out enough rope for Derek to hang.
saying. Or supply him with it,
A little more, bud. A little more.
which we like to do
Uh,
from time to time.
Or jump
uh,
rope with, who knows?
all right, well, let's kick it off with a return to the Tim Burton spooky verse with a sequel that is what, 35 years in the making at this point. We are doing Beetlejuice, directed, of course, by Tim Burton, starring Michael Keaton. We've got Winona Ryder coming back as Lydia Dietz. We've got why Catherine O'Hara coming back as Delia Dietz / Moira Rose, because I think they're very similar as characters. And we're bringing in some new blood. We've got Jenna Ortega as Astra Dietz. We've got Justin Theroux as Rory, Monica Bellucci as Dolores, and Willem Dafoe as Wolf Jackson. So admittedly, this is not one that I have seen. So Derek, I think this one was
This one's
your,
on you, Derek.
yeah, what do you got for us? What do you
Oh
think?
boy. So this is my chance to just
What
divulge
do you mean your
all of the
chance?
gory details. Well, yeah, and this is fresh too because I just saw this last night and it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with this one. It was, it's one of those, like you said, this movie's been a long time coming. I know it's kind of one of those sequels that what it feels like we've heard about for 10 years, 15 years, like that they wanted to make this, but they were kind of waiting for all the stars to align story-wise and for everyone to want to do it. And I think it was worth the wait. And I'm not always sometimes, when there's this much time in between the original and the sequel, you kind of think, well, maybe they shouldn't have done it just because it doesn't feel the same. You feel like maybe it just too much time went by, but I feel like it works for the story here. We have Winona Ryder coming back as Lydia Dietz, and now her daughter, played by Jenna Ortega, is in this as well. And Lydia's she's kind of like a ghost hunter's like paranormal expert in this one, which I thought was a lot of fun. So she's kind of using her link to the afterlife, and in her words, she's kind of sold out. And then you have Justin Theroux as like her manager, but he's kind of like he's trying to like shoehorn his way into her life as like this boyfriend that's just kind of exploiting her. And then Catherine O'Hara, who I loved in Schitt's Creek. I mean, I feel like even more people know about her now. I mean, Home Alone, Schitt's Creek, Beetlejuice. Like it's so fun to see her in this. And I feel like she brings like a little bit more of that Moira from Schitt's Creek this time around. So I think she's just having a blast. And I had a lot of fun with it. I think it hits the mark as far as justifying its existence. And I know, of course, Michael Keaton. I got him to come back as well. Otherwise, you couldn't even call it Beetlejuice. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
And I did hear he was pretty adamant about saying that like he wanted to, like in the first one, have pretty limited screen time.
Yeah.
Like he didn't want to fall
Yes.
into the trap of, it's more Beetlejuice, so let's have it be more Beetlejuice. He really wanted to stick with having him kind of be that like, background threat, or that background mischief.
And it's perfect because they kind of sprinkle him through the first half of the movie, and then they really embrace him in the latter half, and they utilize a lot of his connections in the underworld. So it kind of makes sense how they do it. I know he also, I'd read in interviews he talked with Tim Burton. He, like you said, didn't want to overdo the Beetlejuice character, but then also he wanted like a lot of stuff to be like in camera, like practical, didn't want it over digitized, which I think certainly there's CG in the movie, but there's a lot of really cool practical effects too, just with the makeup. And you have like Willem Dafoe plays this, like he's like this police detective in the underworld, but in real life he like played a Dirty Harry type character like in a movie series. So his character is really fun because he's like playing an actor playing a detective even in the afterlife, and he's just like really over the top.
Mhm.
And yeah, they just have a blast. And I think Jenna Ortega, she's kind of the main character at times, but they also spend a lot of time with Winona Ryder and Catherine O'Hara. And there's just a lot of interesting callbacks to the original, but I wouldn't say that you necessarily. Well, I guess in this case, it really does help to have seen the original.
Well,
You'll
sure.
appreciate
Let me
it
ask
more.
you. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Derek. Tim Burton has said in recent interviews for this movie, for Beetlejuice, that it brought back his passion for filmmaking. That he said
Mm.
he had felt he had kind of lost his enthusiasm for making movies, and that this movie really brought it back. So let me ask, does that show in the product?
Definitely it does because yeah, I feel like, having seen some of his more recent films, not that they were bad, but I feel like this just is fun. Like it's the most fun film. And I think that shows that he had fun making it. It's just really like kind of a celebratory, just the quirkiness of horror, and like you could just feel like he had a good time making it, just in the way that just the little details that come through. Like there's no shot that's really wasted. Like there's all these fun little side characters in the afterlife, and just I feel like the set design and everything. It's all like prime Burton. Like it feels like 80s, early 90s Tim Burton without it being like overly nostalgic either. Like it's just I could definitely see that come through. Like it feels more, I guess, genuine. Like, okay, he had a blast making this. And I think everyone, it definitely feels like, oh, we got the band back together with Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder doing their scenes together again. And I would definitely say this is a return. Not that he ever lost form, but a return to like, frolicking, happy, quirky Tim Burton. And it's also very like morbid too. So they don't hold off on that part.
I don't know, man. Having seen Dumbo, if this one is good, I would say it's a return to form because
It's it's
uh
uh and it's just as heartwarming. I don't know, the pink no pink elephants in this one, but it is
yeah.
it is very hallucinatory nonetheless.
Scott, did you catch this one? I forget.
Beetlejuice? No, not. I
No,
haven't seen
okay.
Beetlejuice yet. No,
All right.
no, sir.
Then they're both to be on our to-do list. I know our fearless leader Jonathan
Yep.
James was saying that this is definitely a good like Halloween time movie, and it's a good one. Like, it's not necessarily
Yeah.
one that you're just going to want to watch year round, but it is
Mhm.
one that people would want to come back to when they want something spooky.
I
Yep.
haven't watched the original in probably, oh boy, 30 years. Probably. I was never a huge fan of it. I liked it, but I never went over the top because I was one of those people who was like, where the fuck's Michael Keaton? I need more Beetlejuice. I was one of those. So I thought
It's like Hannibal Lecter.
I thought the Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis characters were kind of boring. So, but
Oh,
hey, so
Well,
this
I
so when this comes on the box, I will definitely.
I think hearing you say that, you'll like this one a lot more, I think, because even though he's not overly in it, he's definitely just based on, the lore and the mythology that they established in the first one, like he's a much more present part of the entire film, even in the scenes that he's not in. And then yeah, he just hams it up as
Well, I always
as you
just
would
kind of felt
expect.
I always just kind of felt in the first one that anytime he wasn't on the screen, the first movie is boring. Sorry, sorry,
Hot
everyone.
take, hot take.
Hot take. Just because
Want some
his
hot
stuff
cakes with that hot take?
that was such a wonderful character that it
Hmm.
just kind of eclipsed everything else that was around him. So, but I look forward to The Man Who Made Ed Wood, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. I look forward to some of that. Absolutely.
yeah, I'm definitely going to check. I think this will be one that, when it comes out on streaming or something like that, I'll wait for that, but I'm definitely going to
Yeah.
check. Yeah.
And I have to imagine, and it is a lot of it is set on Halloween too within the story. So there's just tons of, yeah, Halloween vibes in this, and a lot of good costume ideas too, and a Danny DeVito role as well for all you Sunny in Philadelphia fans.
I feel so old.
I I love
Yeah,
that
you know
that's the
Danny
reference
DeVito,
from It's Always Sunny.
You
just
know,
the
Yeah.
sunny guy.
not
Yeah.
Yeah.
not Batman Returns, which was actually a Burton DeVito
Or
collaboration,
Taxi
but
or One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or
All right,
you know.
Scott, before we step into the grave, why don't we move on to our next movie?
all right.
Next up, we have Zoe Kravitz's debut directorial effort, Blink Twice, which stars Naomi Ackie, Channing Tatum, Aaliyah Shawkat, Christian Slater, and a bevy of other people. It takes place on an island that is owned by Slater King, who is Channing Tatum's. He is at the beginning of the movie. He has been outed for abuses of power, implications that they were sexual in nature, and he's been. We capture him at kind of like the peak of his redemption. He is back in the public eye. He has apologized for what he's done. He's talked about all the therapy and all the things that he's done to work on himself. And a lot of this steadies on or centers on this island where he goes and has kind of like a commune kind of vibe. And we meet Naomi Aki's character is Frida. She is a caterer to the stars kind of thing, and she is at an event. You get a sense early in the movie that she is kind of obsessed with Slater King, and she works her way into actually being like kind of crashes as a guest at the party she was working, and she winds up hitting it off with Slater, who invites her and her friend, played by Aaliyah Shawkat, to his island. And things go awry in a very, very harrowing way. This movie, I think, was a super solid debut from Zoe Kravitz. And remind me again, Scott, Derek, either of you seen this yet?
Not
I have not.
yet.
Okay. So honestly, I don't want to get into spoilers with this then, other than it is the things that you think are actually going on are going on.
Okay.
I don't want to, and they kind of kick things off with a pretty prominent, this is the first time I've seen this. They give like a trigger slash content warning, like officially with the movie. There's a little like title card that comes up beforehand and says like this depicts assaults, and it depicts like sexual assault, and it is playing not playing it is exploring some really dark themes about the dynamics of gender and power and money, and the ways in which you kind of look through the way people bemoan cancel culture and the way that the public won't give people a second chance, but then the flip side of that is the way that people try and manipulate that and apologize more as a way for their public image than any kind of actual natural introspection.
Sure.
I think what this movie does best is take a really harrowing discussion and a really intense and in some cases brutal discussion and does it in a way that is still, it keeps a dark sense of humor throughout the whole thing that keeps things moving. It's not like, I actually figured for some reason I assumed this was going to be a movie that was going to be like 2 to 2.5 hours long and kind of like really draw out what's going on. It's like
Yeah.
90 and change.
There
Like
you
this is
go.
a movie that clips. It is edited well. It's a movie because you kind of know just in the trailer, based on the premise, there's going to be some really wonky shit going on and what it's
Mhm.
going to revolve. And I think what is interesting is the way that it's revealed and the mechanisms for what's going on. I didn't see it coming, and the vibe of the movie gave me, I was getting very big like Get Out meet Knives Out vibes. And it reminded me of both of those things without suffering in comparison. So the fact that Zoe Kravitz in her first movie reminded me of Jordan Peele and Ryan Johnson, but didn't make me go like, I'd rather be watching those movies is a
Yeah.
pretty fucking epic accomplishment.
Yeah, no doubt.
Um,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of it has to do with, yeah, it's very well written. I mean, she's been writing this thing, I think, since 2007. At one point,
Wow.
the working title was Pussy Island, which I think would have been another, like, I think would have been a bold choice. I think
Sorry, I
Blink
just think
Twice
of
works really
MILF
well.
Island. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's she's been working on it, since for years. But she got she has a really tight script, I think, and she got a really good cast. I think Channing Tatum has such a great kind of aw shucks vibe about him that I think he uses to really sinister effect in this movie. And yeah, a lot of the supporting characters are great. And our lead, Naomi Aki, she does such a great job on kind of giving you this person who you understand how you can like get caught up in kind of the spectacle of it all and kind of like the fairy tale of what they're presenting before the reality. So yeah, there's a lot of like it is not, it's not necessarily an easy movie to watch, but it is one that gives a lot of like really good comeuppance slash like fist pump moments. It's also got an ending that I saw in a pretty solid like light, but the guy I went to see kind of brought this could go one of two directions based off of how you see it. It could be a really powerful fist bump moment or a more nihilistic, cynical kind of moment. And again, I know we gave a blanket spoiler alert, but like since both of you haven't seen the end of this movie, I don't want to get too much into the weeds on what that means exactly. But yeah, like I would give this one, like the more I think about it, like crap, we didn't do Derek, we'll come around to you for your
Mm.
star rating on Beetlejuice. I would give this a solid 4 out of 5. This
nice.
was a really good debut. And I think it's one that is, yeah, it hits that like that sweet spot of it doesn't seem diluted in terms of what they're talking about. But Zoe Kravitz does it in a way that like it's still like a movie you can go to and you don't necessarily feel exhausted or like emotionally just like punched in the
Drained.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
And I also love that, on a budget of $20 million, it made like 45 million. It's just
Wow.
kind of one of those like it's that kind of movie you don't see anymore where it's like a
Mhm.
low to medium sized budget that makes a tidy return. Like that doesn't happen
Go
much.
figure. Isn't that
Yeah.
weird?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so wild.
So it
Small
still works.
movies, small budget, make money.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And it
It's
seems like it,
crazy.
it
And
it usually has to go like in one direction or the other, where it's either like a bajillion dollars to make and you have to make a
or
billion dollars off it, or it's like, $5 million like, indie thing. Like I like just like, and 20 million at this point, today is still pretty tiny in terms of like budget, but
Yeah.
um it all shows up on the screen. Like it's a beautiful movie. It's well edited. They do really good work with the location where they shot it. Yeah, it's I definitely.
Right on. That goes on my that goes well, I've been hearing nothing but great things all
Mhm.
around of it. So it's definitely at the top of the streamer list when it comes
Absolutely. So yeah, just real quick,
Uh,
Derek, let's swing around. Beetlejuice. What do you give that one?
Well, first let me further dissect the second half and really no. No, I think I would also give Beetlejuice a 4 out of 5. I think it achieves everything it wanted to, and it still has stuff for newcomers to the franchise, or if you want to call it a franchise. I guess it does have a cartoon series, so you could call it that. But yeah, I would give it a solid four Beatles out of 5.
Nice. Then let us move on to Late Night with the Devil, which I'm only
Woo!
just recently catching up with.
Nice.
Folks, one of the things that I've kind of been navigating, and I think we've talked about this on different Twitch streams, and I think on even a couple of episodes of here is, the I think during the pandemic, my appetite for horror, and to the point where I think like 2023 into 2024 could count on one hand the number of new horror. So I have found that my appetite is coming back. And so I
Woo!
knew one of the ones I was going to need to go back to when I wanted to start watching some stuff again was Late Night with the Devil, because I love the concept.
Yep.
Directed by Colin and Cameron Cairns. It stars Darren Dastmalchian, and I hope I am saying that
David,
correctly.
David, you said Darren, David Dasmalchian.
That's what I said. You may have
You
misheard
said,
me,
oh,
but
I'm
no, I
sorry. I
definitely
thought you
said
said Darren.
no. I said David.
God damn me. Just trying
David
to be helpful.
Dastmalchian.
All right,
Close
carry
enough.
on.
It's it starts with a D.
I think
Sorry.
I had gotten so hung up on pronouncing his last name correctly that I just completely flubbed his first name.
I knew it.
So yeah, pandemic brain is still a thing, guys. Or just, post 40 brain, either way.
There you go.
Uh, David Dastmalchian is the star. He stars as a fictional late night host, Jack Delroy, who you get introduced through this kind of montage of his life as a late night host, constantly competing and never quite catching the heights of Johnny Carson and his late night show. And there are hints that the lengths he goes to try and meet the heights of Johnny Carson includes being part of like the secret society that may or not be some kind of like satanic men's club, and that definitely I think comes into play a little bit further into the movie. But
Hmm.
I love this premise as like this mockumentary where they introduce Delroy, they introduce this episode, and then they kind of interweave the live episode with the quote unquote behind the scenes footage, which is basically just their way of being able to, have connective tissue
Yeah.
of what's going on, in between. I love this movie. This was so cool.
Yeah.
I think it makes it's in the same spirit of like this does to 1970s what the WNUF special did for like 80s kind of like horror nostalgia slash just like aesthetics. So yeah, I really dug this. It was I don't know if funny is the right word, but it was just like quirky and eccentric, while also just getting progressively more dark. Um, Derek, Scott, have either or
Yeah.
both of you seen this one?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
Certainly
we all
have.
get to
Affirmative.
talk about this one. All right,
Oh,
all right.
yes, we can.
Scott,
I
we'll go
loved
with
it.
you first. Yeah.
Sure. I loved it. It's so, one of the things I love about it is it's so self. There are no, because you're dealing with this very specific type of format, which is a 70s talk show. That is it's a self-contained environment, a world. And those two brothers, the directors, they do such a good job, I think, on a very limited budget. Let's remember that too. This is a small budgeted film. they managed to get a wonderful performance from Mr. David Desmalchian. He's one of my favorite actors going, and I think this is just a bravura performance from him. I think it's one of his very best, one that seems like it was almost a written for him. I hope it was, because he deserves. He's like, I think he really could be like a modern day monster guy, like a Vincent Price, a Peter Cushing, something, Christopher Lee, something to that effect. He is gathering all these great parts and roles. Last Voyage of the Demeter, a good movie with a great performance by him. I just loved it, and I think what they were able to do with that budget was really create. And I think you're right, Brian. It is funny. It is funny, not so much maybe the intentional. Well, I shouldn't say that. When they're showing like the footage, old clips of his show, and they're doing something, that stuff is like it's about as funny as watching an old Carson clip, which is it's very dated and seems passe and whatnot. So putting that on and then having for this is a make or break episode of his show, this Halloween episode, to speak to a devil, to speak to a demon on the air, and the way it's played out, that girl, the girl that's possessed, holy shit burgers, she is creepy, like genuinely creepy. And I think that's important to sell the story. So just from top to bottom, yeah, there's a few moments I think in the quote unquote behind the scenes where it's there to push the exposition along and fill us in on some details, is the wonkier part of the two, I think, occasionally. Having said that, I loved it, and for me, it's a solid 4 out of 5.
And yeah, Ingrid Torelli plays Lily, who is the
Okay,
the survivor.
yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, she is
So
so
good.
creepy. She does
yeah.
that so well.
Yeah, I
Also,
definitely agree with that. Oh, and it's yeah,
Would you
it
like to
just it,
elaborate?
well, if I must say that
If you
no, this
wish.
it is just like you said, this perfectly captures, you know, that late 70s aesthetic with the set design, everything, every little detail. Like it feels like it was really important to recreate that era for the brothers directing this and their whole team. But yeah, David Dastmalchian is phenomenal, and it does feel like this is that. I mean, obviously he's been in so many great things, but I feel like I hope people watch this performance and are, this really propels him to get that leading role even more down the line, because he is so fun to watch and he conveys so many different emotions just effortlessly. And he was, born to play this role, I feel like. And
He's a
actually
very
was, yeah, we saw this at Overlook a couple of years ago, and he was there to like present the film, and it was just
yeah.
such a treat to see that come to life on screen.
You know what I think too is, and again, it's just all about him, but uh, he has a great career because he has a foot in both worlds, in the mainstream. And you'll see him. He was up on stage at the Oscars for Oppenheimer.
mhm.
So on the one hand, he has a foot as a character actor in the mainstream. In the indie world, where he's given, the big pack of crayons and the coloring book and say go wild, and people are throwing projects his way because he's just so goddamn
Yeah.
in everything.
And I remember the first time I saw him was as just like a random henchman in The Dark Knight. He like he's one of Joker's henchmen, and he has such kind of a memorable presence that like I remembered him instantly from that movie. So whenever he would pop up elsewhere, it's like, oh, it's the dude
There you
from The
go.
Dark Knight.
Yeah,
And now that has grown into like his own thing. And yeah, there are a few people who I think can cross the line, like you said, the way he does, where you'll see him pop up and make a good career as like the small character actor, but then just absolutely take the ball and run with it when given the opportunity in these small. It's
yeah.
kind of the thing you wish could have happened a little bit more for Bruce Campbell, who I think got more of the indie scene, but he didn't have that chance to like straddle as much in the mainstream stuff. I think he had a
No,
little bit of
yeah.
that, but
I think with
um
with Bruce, I think Uh, I think Bruce like did not pass go and he went straight to cult
Hmm.
figure, and I mean, I'm sure it's a good place for him to be. I'm sure he would have liked to have more of that mainstream, but he's taken that he did that mainstream, he had the Adventures of Briscoe County. He
Hmm.
is a known entity
Sure.
in smaller roles, again, in the bigger pictures. And who is he in the cult indie world? He's Bruce fucking Campbell.
Yeah.
And that carries that's a 20 tongue hammer, my friends,
Indeed, indeed,
so
yeah.
don't feel too bad for Bruce. I
No,
think,
no, I don't feel
he's
bad
okay.
for him at all. But yeah, yeah, I think that's more just to say, like, I think they like, kind of thinking about people who do that. That was kind of the first
Sure,
person who
sure,
comes to mind,
sure.
in
Yeah,
straddling that line.
absolutely.
Yeah. Also another funny thing that about Late Night with the Devil that I hadn't realized till afterwards, that really great narration we get is from none other than Mr. Michael Ironside.
Oh my, I did not know
Wow.
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's
Oh
Yeah.
awesome.
wow.
Who, if nothing else, you all know as Richter from Total Recall, but just an absolute, that guy character actor from 80s action. That, uh,
He blowed up that guy's head real good in Scanners. So
yes,
Which
yeah.
there's some
yes,
scanners
yes.
moments in this movie too. That's very fitting.
Yeah, yeah, no, it draws to, it's such, they do such a great job at kind of like building to a crescendo, and giving you little breadcrumbs of like, where is this going? You see flashes of Jack's, deceased wife in the background, and you're wondering, like, is she there as like a savior or like someone trying to protect him? Is she there as a reminder of something, which, well, we're talking about spoilers on this one. Like, she is a reminder of something. You get those hints at the beginning that like he was part of that boys club, that satanic boys club. And you get the idea as things go along. It becomes more and more obvious that the price of his success was his wife. Uh, he agreed to, I think there's a little bit of ambiguity about whether or not he knew what he was agreeing to, but he agreed to sacrifice something very important to him, and in this case, it was
His
um,
wife.
yeah, take my wife. Oh God, why are we doing Borat impressions?
I don't
Okay,
know.
so but yeah, the way, in certain ways there are notes where it's like, okay, like you even though you kind of see where the train is going, there's still such a good job at like, okay, what are we gonna see? Like what kind of scenery are we gonna get on the way there?
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. It's again, a fast-paced movie, a very involving movie, so much to look at because uh, if you're a younger person and you're unsure of what like a 70s talk show looked like, if you don't know Johnny Carson from fucking Benny Hill, that's okay. This gives you a glimpse into that. The only thing that Johnny Carson had was a bigger budget and slightly better writers and better celebrities, of course, bigger celebrities. But there's so if you come at it with fresh eyes and you're seeing this 70s scene, it's fascinating. As older folk who were around watching TV in the 70s, it holds up pretty good, I'll tell you. Everything from the commercial breaks to the sets, the music, everything. It captures an era of television that uh, is still around. It's and just as tacky as ever. It's just slicker than this. And what I think probably what I love best about the movie, and you mentioned this, Brian, is you really have a guy who's trying to keep his shit together, who's trying to have the biggest show of his life. Otherwise, he's getting canceled while he's dealing with all this stuff that is leaked out to us and informs his decision making. And it's wonderful to see an actor like this take on a role where he's in this pressure cooker and it reads on his face as you
Mhm.
watch him get more anxious and more upset and freaking out about what is happening. So yeah.
Well, and also, like, they find that balance between as the movie goes on, like more and more, like you realize he's kind of a scumbag too. And
Yeah.
but you're still invested. Like you're not like dismissing like, oh, this guy sucks. Who cares? It's this guy sucks. What's gonna happen next?
Exactly. You don't have to like him, but they do play a good game there in that, yeah, he is seen as the protagonist at the start of the movie, and then as we go on and we find out more about him, you go, oh no, he's kind of a piece of shit, isn't he? Yeah, he really is.
But because Desmalchian's so good, it like he still pulls you along for that.
Hmm.
There's still a little bit of that. Okay, I want to see what happens with him, and it also is a good, like Beetlejuice, a good Halloween movie with the whole setting and the where the stage is set and everything. So
Yeah, well, that's just it. Like Brian was mentioning it, comparing it to kind of putting it in the same category as like WNUF Halloween special. And I get
mhm.
that because they're using a lot of the same trappings to tell a horror story, right? And it is perfect for Halloween, Derek. You're right. This is the kind of thing. This is a movie that I'll be going back to again and again for sure.
Hmm.
I almost watched it again today, but I decided to go old school and watch Demon Seed again instead. But terrific movie. Loved it.
Yeah, it's a
Demon
four out of
Seed
five for
or
me.
Late Night with the Devil.
Yeah, that's a 4 out of 5 for me too. And in case I hadn't said,
And I would also concur with that. Three fours
Nice.
from the Three Horsemen.
that's right.
Your apocalypse on a budget.
The Three Horsemen. There you go.
So
All
let us
right.
go to a movie
Who's
that I
next?
think it made an interesting splash this In a Violent Nature, from written
Ah,
written and directed by Chris.
uh-huh.
It's this was one that, yeah, it hit movie theaters earlier this year. It
Mhm.
is a new take, or a different take on the slasher, in that the object, or the gimmick, is that they are following the slasher. You are not following the kids around and waiting for him to come out of the shadows. You are following our slasher. I'm trying to name
Johnny.
Johnny. Yes,
Yeah.
Johnny. Who is kind of a Jason Voorhees-esque. He's got a tragic backstory, but he has come back from the grave. We actually kick off the movie where you hear kind of these terrible teens are hanging out near the fire tower where he's been buried. They pick up this golden necklace, and that kicks off his rampage, which is, spoiler alert, he's just looking for his necklace, folks. That his only motivating factor. He is trying to find the necklace. In the meantime, he will kill anybody he runs. Now, people who watch our Twitch streams might remember that, like, during one of the streams, randomly we got to talking about this movie, and Scott had some notes. He had some takes about the pace of the movie. I think it really comes down to, his take was that you basically just watch this guy walk in the woods for minutes at a time. And so I gave him a lot of crap about it, because I hadn't seen it yet, but it's Scott, and I like to give him shit. So I was looking forward to seeing this, and I went into it really wanting to like it so that I could give Scott a hard time. I find myself, I think I might even like it less than Scott did.
Oh my goodness. Woo!
Oh
This
All
no.
was
right.
not a good movie. I think it is. I think another thing that you had mentioned, that it makes for a good idea for, like, maybe a short movie, but there is no way to fill this into a feature. I I think it. I think the biggest thing that aggravates me about this movie is that it doesn't even fully commit to its gimmick.
No.
The idea is that you're supposed to follow this guy around, and you are in his shoes as he goes around, but there are so many times where the point of view shifts back to the teenagers, and these are the worst, most obnoxious fucking teenagers I have ever seen on screen. And that's saying, like, that is from someone who regularly watches Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. Like, at least the people in that movie are so over the top that they're like funny caricatures.
Yeah, these
The
are just
people,
burning annoying.
these are just, oh, these are just, oh man. And the thing I was looking forward to was that it was going to be like, okay, we're following him, so maybe we'll get like little flashes of like who these kids are, and maybe we'll see that they're terrible, and it'll be like, hey, maybe we'll actually be rooting for him. But there's so many times where it cuts back to their point of view, or it does this mashup of you're following him, but then you're seeing from their point of view. Like I think a perfect example of this is a sequence where he is following this one of the teens is doing yoga on like a cliffside, and you see it's him walking up to her, and it could have been such a great thing where it's like you just see him and you see her react, and you kind of take it in as like this moment where the tension is coming from, okay, when is she going to turn around and see him, and how is that going? And they kind of do that, but again they cut to her point of view in a way where it's just like it completely takes the steam out of the gimmick and out of the premise. Now granted, if there are people who really like are who are gorehounds, then you are going to really enjoy, like, in the sequence he stabs through her gut with a hook,
Yeah,
hits her in the head with the other side of the hook that's attached
yeah,
to a chain, and then
yeah,
literally pulls her head out of her back. Like, it is
yeah.
very crunchy, very sloshy, very practical effects driven. But I am definitely someone who is in the camp where if I don't care about the rest of the movie, good gore is not going to save it. And that's
Well,
where I
this
found myself with this.
this is what I had said to you earlier, Brian, too, is that when you put it from his point of view, who am I rooting for? Who am I rooting for? Even in a Friday the 13th 7, you have Tina, right? Or any of the Friday, you have someone to root for. They give us a final girl here. And in that drawn out ending where nothing happens,
Ugh.
there's here's the thing for me with this movie. I appreciate the idea behind it, changing the POV on a slasher movie. Okay, but it can't just be that, because you have to find a way to have someone to cheer for. I'm not cheering for Johnny because you find out little bits about Johnny, but not enough to care. And why would I be caring anyway? I don't give a shit about Jason. No offense if there's any Jason lovers out there. The effects are great. Yes, it's beautifully shot. There is zero suspense. There are zero scares. There's just not enough here for me to recommend. Like I had said to you, Brian, as a short, as a clever idea for a short, give her. But just keep it from his point of view and do a little short where, hey, you want to see what it's like to chase a kid
Mhm.
through the woods and see him go from point A to point B. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool the first 10 minutes it happens. It's not cool the next 70 and 80
Yeah,
that it does.
yeah.
Um, so if I was going to rate this one, and I know probably a little bit higher than you because there's a lot of, I look forward to his next
Well,
picture.
before we get to a ratings, I have plenty more to
Okay.
say about this.
Oh,
So
I'm
before
sorry.
we, and
Please.
I also want to give Derek a chance. I don't, have you seen this one yet? Did you catch
I
this?
have actually, and
All right,
I'm
D.
kind of the outlier. I actually liked it a lot. Well, at least more than you two do. But
You're an
and
outlier, is right. No, I'm kidding.
I do agree that it does, it can be a little jarring in that it does not completely stick to whose point of view it's from. But as an experimental type film, like the thing that kind of popped to mind for me was like Richard Linklater's Slackers, where the camera's just following people the entire movie. And I
Do
know,
they do stuff in Slacker though?
I mean, they like shop in bookstores and talk about this and that, and there's some, yeah, I mean, there's some random things happening, but
Okay.
nobody does get their head like pulled out through their back though. So this is for, I guess, for the experimental part of it, I was a little more on board with it. I thought that it had some, it had some story there, like with the park ranger, where you can tell that like something happened. I think it was like 10 years earlier, and so they were kind of hinting at the mythology of Johnny and how this isn't like the first time that he's done this. And so there's little bits and pieces I think they could have dived into a little more. But I thought, and actually they might, because at Comic-Con they did announce and that there will be a sequel. So it
Eh.
who knows? But I guess it didn't bother me as much. The the way I kind of the way I described it as like a horror hangout movie or a slasher hangout movie, and for better or worse, because
Worse.
there's a it but maybe I was just in a different mindset when I watched it, but it was I had a good time with it for the most part. I do agree that there's some areas where maybe it could have committed a little more to being from Johnny's point of view, or you know maybe a little bit shorter on the runtime. But I know I had actually talked with Chris Nash, the director, and he said there was a lot of footage too that didn't make it into the movie just because they shot like just a lot of they were filming from behind the actor playing Johnny, Rye Barrett, and so maybe I can for the holidays I'll gift you guys, if there's ever a director's cut, I can send that your way.
Yeah, 20 more minutes
More
of walking
footage.
in the woods.
But I do
I
appreciate the gore. I know Chris comes from a like a practical effects background. I know he worked like on Psycho Goreman, and so I think there's a lot of. I feel like it's a really good potential. Like I'll be really curious to see what the sequel does, because I'm curious how married to this format it will be, or if they'll do something entirely different. Like I do feel like there's some potential here, just as a new slasher like setting and character and things like that. But I know it's a very experimental movie. I feel like it's one that you could show to like a group of people and they might, they might they might hate it, they might love it, or
And it
like
is a
me.
divisive movie, and that's great because at least it's an interesting movie in certain respects, right? I don't really like it, but I'm glad that I saw it and had a chance to join in on the discourse. I think if it had been a traditional slasher with music, with an opening backstory
Oh,
on
that was
Johnny,
the
a
other
setup,
thing. That was the other
like
thing. This
if
is
they
the
had
movie
done
that
that,
proves the importance of a sound.
Well, to be fair though, there is that music on the severed head that you kind of can hear,
Doesn't
but you
count.
can't
Yeah,
fully hear
no,
it.
no, yeah, no.
I would have enjoyed it more as a traditional slasher. Look how it's
Mm.
shot. It would be a beautiful looking slasher. The gore, well, there's no question there. That's taken care of. And Johnny could be an interesting character. But it's all that stuff is handed out like little piecemeals. Like I'm interested enough to put it all together. I'm not, because you're not giving me anything really interesting to watch on the screen. So I don't care about Johnny's backstory. I certainly don't care about the kids. As Brian said, they're very obnoxious, and they're not given, and they're not, plus they're not given any personalities. They're
Mhm.
literally just fodder for Johnny. Again, that's part of the experiment, I guess. I'm not sure what the point of it was beyond saying this is the
What
killer's
if we
point.
did this? Yeah. And I think part of what aggravates me the most is I think there is promise of a really good movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an issue of that you can't make this premise work. I just don't think it was executed as well as it could have been here, because I think if you really lean into, because you get like in the beginning of the movie there's that brief thing where you kind of see Johnny like remembering and kind of like a hallucinatory flashback, like his mom giving him the necklace. If you have a lot more of that, and maybe you have these instances where um you're getting some more of that backstory and really leaning into like the tragedy of why he's now this
Mm.
revenant that stalks the woods. And I think you get like hints like the ranger, where you get the hint that like he was the one of the people who actually like beat him when he came back at one point. You get hints that maybe the ranger's not such a good guy either, like he's from the family of the people who killed him in the first place. And I think that would have been a good opportunity to have like, I don't know, a flashback, or him seeing that hallucinatory thing where like you maybe see the true colors of the ranger or something like that. Like
Yeah.
really lean in and make Johnny the good guy and make all these people around him the bad guy. And we've also seen instances like I have seen the point of view from the killer and following the killer, that has worked. And I will point to Halloween 2018 for as many issues as I have about that latest trilogy. In that first movie where you're following Michael around on his rampage, you can see how following the killer around can work and be suspenseful. And
Mm,
so all I kept thinking about during this was like the movie that this could have been instead of the movie that it wound up being. And it was just
yeah.
it disappointed.
Yeah, I'm just more disappointed than anything. I am glad that I didn't see it in the theater. But I'm glad that Derek, I'm glad that you like it. There's a lot of people who like it. There's a lot of people who like it. And I think it just comes down to what you're willing to take in from your slasher and what you want from a slasher. And until I watched this, maybe I didn't even really know what I wanted from a slasher. But after watching it, I certainly
Much
knew
better
what I
idea.
didn't want.
And I think with that, I think I land on this one. I would give it a 2 out of 5. There was some stuff to like about it, but I think I dislike.
I'm going to go 2.5 because I see the potential there, and I'm definitely looking forward to his next film. Please don't let it be in a violent, but it's going to be. But I hope
And
it's tightened up and sorted out and given more focus in one direction or the other.
I think there is like a springboard thing where you could go a million different directions in the sequel, and I don't think you're necessarily going to see more of this, like a duplicate necessarily. So I'm excited for that, and I'm gonna keep climbing the rankings and go. I think a 3.5 out of 5.
There you go.
All right,
All
fair.
right.
So
All right. Well, then let's cap things off with the latest from Osgood Perkins, Longlegs. And Scott, I believe this was your baby, right?
Yeah. Have either of you seen it yet?
I have not had a chance to see it
not
yet. No.
Derek? Neither of
not
you.
yet. I
Okay.
know, I know.
Okay. I don't even really have to avoid any spoilers here. What you see in the trailer is sort of the movie you get, except it isn't. And I'm going to be vague and assholish, but I will try to get you guys through it. So it starts off with a little girl looking out a window from her bedroom, second floor of a farmhouse. Well, actually, first we see a station wagon pulling up to that. And then that car parks. We see her look out the window and she sees that car. She goes downstairs, she puts on, it's winter time, so she puts on her scarf and jacket and everything and heads out to see who this car is that's parked like 50, 100 yards from her house, but they're in isolation. So she goes down there, and when she gets to the station wagon, there's no one in the car. But then she hears someone calling and says, "There she is, the almost birthday girl." And she turns around, and it's Nicolas Cage as Longlegs, and you're only seeing him essentially from the neck down. And he says, "I wore my long legs today. Maybe if I do this," and then he crouches down, puts his face in, and it smash cuts to long legs. And this is within the first 5 minutes, so you're already set off on edge. Uh, Nicolas Cage is a terrifying baddie. Not quite how much though yet. Then we go and we see uh, Micah Monroe as an FBI agent, Lee Harker, and she's being assigned to this case to find this serial killer. She's teamed up with this other guy. They search this neighborhood, and she just takes a look at one house where they think this guy lives in this neighborhood, so they're going to canvass. She takes a look at the house, and she's at this one house, and she says, "He's in there." And her partner goes, "What do you mean he's in there? How would you know that?" She says, I just know he's in there." She's like, "You got to call it in." He's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not calling in. This is our first day canvassing, and you want to call in a hunch with no evidence." She's like, "I think we should." And he's like, "Nope, we'll just go, we'll check the house." Okay. So he knocks on the door. He gets shot in the head immediately. And then she stops this serial killer. It's not Longlegs, but it's to give us an introduction to her, which follows up with her in a room where she's put through a series of psychological evaluation tests to see how, well, essentially to see if she's psychic or not, right? As it turns out, she's maybe a little psychic or she's highly intuitive. Blair Underwood, her boss, he decides that's what he's going to refer to her gift as is that. So he decides to let her in on the Longlegs case, which is, of course, our Nicholas. Now, this is where it veers it heavily, I should say, heavily into Silence of the Lamb territories. Not necessarily in a great way, and only because it kind of set the standard for FBI tracking down serial killer. You're automatically going to go to Silence of the Lambs. You're going to go even further when your lead actress walks around a lot, very anxious with a gun. You're going to get that. You're going to think that a lot too. But it takes many detours. It has many twists. It's not exactly everything doesn't play out exactly how I thought it was going to play out. I'll just say this in terms of plot, and then I'll move on. There is a supernatural element to this that elevates the movie to like the top of my ear so far.
Okay.
It's gleefully satanic.
Nice.
I mean,
Oh.
it has an aura to it that is creepy right from the start. Again, a great soundtrack, tributes. Um, but for me, this is the Osgood Perkins movie where everything clicks in. I'd admired him more than I liked his work before. I admired The Black Coat's Daughter. I feel no need to revisit it again. This is a much more, even though it's about, this FBI agent who's trying to track down this serial killer. It does deal with a lot of anxiety issues as it is in the character. So while this character essentially embodies the anxiety that the viewer is watching, as we get another letter from Longlegs that has to be decoded, that's found at the crime scene. No other evidence, no DNA, nothing is found at these crime scenes. It's families where the father is killing the family, right? And then they kill themselves. Longlegs behind it, they have no idea how, because he does not seem to be at the crime scenes at all. There's nothing to put him at the crime scenes at all. And that's all I'm going to say, because uh, it's a terrific, creepy, scary ass movie that, like I said, revels in its satanic influence. The last word, I'll tell you the last word of the last phrase of the movie is Nicolas Cage saying, "Hail Satan." Okay. And when he
Subtle.
did that, I
Really
was
just ripped that
almost
off from
crying.
Rosemary's Baby then, right?
I was just like crying tears of joy almost. I was like, yes,
Wow,
go
that's
for it. Because why not? Look, and
I mean,
that's like a Pyman at the end of Hereditary moment.
yeah, it leans into it. It's not cutesy about it. And as the movie goes on and more is revealed, it just gets creepier and creepier.
mm.
I think if it didn't have the supernatural element to it, again, I'm not telling you what that is because it's super cool. I would say it would still be my favorite Osgood Perkins movie by a long shot. It would be a good, thriller like Silence of the Lambs. But this is a horror movie.
Mm.
It's a horror movie writ large. Nicolas Cage is, oh, he's so good and so great. Micah Monroe, Alicia Witt is fantastic. Blair Underwood, my God, how wonderful to see Blair Underwood on the big screen. He's terrific. The whole cast is great. Uh, and again, it has, I know Jonathan has seen it, and he really dug it too. It has vibe for miles. This one for me would be a 4.5
Mm.
out of five. It's not it's not overly gory, but it has atmosphere like nobody's.
Mm.
There's a couple leaps of logic to it, but I'm perfectly fine with that because everything else it does and what it's kind of dealing with anyway, I think it does so well that who cares about your little points of logic, okay? Nicolas Cage ends the movie saying "Hail
Hail
Satan,"
Satan. Yeah.
so um, I loved it, and I think you guys are really going to dig it.
honestly, that kind of like pushed me over. Like I was considering this one, and I think I'm gonna have to put this up in this.
Yeah, it's so
And
good.
Yeah,
apparently, a lot of people have too, because on a $10 million budget, this one made 105 or $108.5 million. So it did pretty well.
Wow.
And that's kind of surprising to me because it's not it's not a root for the hero kind of like it's not built up that way,
Yeah.
like a mainstream movie would build up the big finish. I mean, there is a finish, absolutely to it. But it doesn't do it in like the big
Yeah.
Hollywood way.
I feel
S-
like I feel like the word of mouth kind of got around about like what a
Totally.
unique and weird character Nicolas Cage has in Longlegs. So I think that might
Mhm.
have been where, no pun intended, where this movie got its legs from, has been people talking about and getting.
Yeah, there's been a viral element to the marketing of it, especially the that
Their
it came out
marketing
in the
was
middle of
brilliant.
summer. Like that's impressive. I mean, it came
Mhm.
out not a dead time at all for the box office traditionally when you're dealing with the summer blockbuster season and
Yeah.
just so much other stuff. Like the way that it found a foothold, and I feel like even obviously like a lot of people diehard horror fans were really looking forward to this, but I feel like I've seen an awareness of this movie. Like a lot of people seem to at least know about it or they've heard about it, and it's kind of interesting how it's really found its legs. Oh wait, you already said that.
Listen, what I also
Straight
like
up
about it,
plagiarism.
and for Oz Perkins is this movie has a spirit to it, a liveliness to it, that I just personally wasn't getting from his other movies. This is uh, it's made to captivate people in a quick way. His other movies were more of slow burn right from the start. Like I said, when Nicolas Cage says, "I'm wearing my long legs," and then he crouches down, you see this much of his face for like half of a film strip, just enough to go, "What the fuck was that?" Right? And then and
You're
then and
hooked.
then yeah, and then you're hooked. You're in
Yeah.
automatically. And then when she has her first takedown of that other serial killer, you're hooked with her character. So it's like, okay, he's he's doing like a Hollywood plot, but he's doing it on his terms and with so many layers of weirdness that would not get past David Zaslav, for instance.
Ugh. Well, I think you have convinced me. By our next episode, I'm going to have seen
Yeah,
Longlegs, because I
Oh
think I
yeah.
want to.
Oh, we got to talk about it.
definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe not here, or we can, but I need to know what you guys think about it because
No, the
I
people
I
must hear
think
what I think too.
well, absolutely, but I think you guys are like gonna really love it.
Awesome.
And as you mentioned, Jonathan gave it a 5 out of 5 in his review. So
Oh, yeah.
he
Okay.
is he loved
Yeah,
it even more.
I could bump it to five. I could bump it to five, no problem. I probably want to
I
watch it again,
Screw that. I give it
but
a 5.5 out of
I
5.
give it a
Yeah.
five. Yeah, he gives it. Fuck you, 6. I give it 6 long legs out of 5.
Oh no. All right. I think that brings us to a good stopping point for the episode. Telling Jonathan to go fuck himself. So with that, as always, we want to thank our listeners. Make sure you visit corpseclub.com to check out our latest episode. Don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Every single rating us out. You can also find us on Google Play, SoundCloud, and all your favorite. If you do want to get in touch, you can reach us anytime at contact@corpseclub.com, or on Twitter at Daily Dead News, or at Corpse Club, and on Instagram and Facebook under Corpse Club. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, stay scared.